What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Big Five Pod, episode number 124. I'm, of course, co-host Kyle Morello. Next to me, the one and only Jay Copestick. First time we've done back-to-back weeks. It's probably May or so, which is awesome. And we've got a great one for the people tonight with Steve Donahue, the associate head coach of St. Joe's, coming on our show. So we're very excited for that. But Cope, how are you?
Doing well, Kyle. Great weekend down the shore. Sweltering heat out there in Sea Isle City, at least Saturday, but can't do that in October and November when there's games going on. So great to go down the shore, get a little respite, as I said last week, a little R&R. But summer's moving on. It is flying by, Kyle, and I keep looking at that calendar and I'm counting down the days, even though we're pretty much in the deepest part of the offseason. We're almost about like directly midway between where the championship game is, where opening night is. So I think I'm starting to feel that. As much as I'm excited, like I don't have like FOMO or like pressure that I'm going to miss something. It's like there's recruiting going on, and it's like, well, like how many of these guys are going to make an impact in like year one? Like I'm not going to like have laser beams on the Peach Jam or something like that. But regardless, I'm well rested. Great weekend down the shore. Hopefully I'm not sunburned, or at least don't look it. But all is well over here, Kyle.
Well, listen, you usually have your sunscreen with you, so I hope you're applying that. Sad I missed you at Sea Isle this weekend. There you go. See,
Got some here.
ladies and gentlemen, he's got it on him at all times. It's the sunscreen and the Yeti and the basketball always with them. Well, I bumped my mic there, but anyway, speaking of that basketball, Cope, we've got some stuff to go over. Even though it's not that much, like you said, we're probably in the deepest part of the offseason right now. Though we're going to get there. There's football on soon. The TBT's on right now. So there's things that distract us before we get to, September, October. We really start missing hoops. But some things to go over first here in the month of July, Cope. So you have that ball already in your hand. I'm not going to tell you to go grab it, but we do have your quick hitters to go over. So run the break. Give it to me.
Yeah, it's not going to be too long. Act as though we're outside playing in the heat wave that's been going on. So we're just going to do a couple up backs, and then we'll hit the hay here and we'll move on. Couple scheduling notes here and then an administrative note. Nothing too crazy before we get you into the main event here with Steve Donahue. So Villanova, they set a date with Old Dominion. They're going to host the Monarchs on Tuesday, November the 25th. That's after Old Dominion plays at Drexel as part of an MTE with Morgan State on Saturday, November the 23rd. So a Philly double trip here for Old Dominion, the Monarchs. And Kevin Willard is going to play against his former assistant coach in Maryland, Old Dominion head coach Mike Jones, who was at the MAPTA, and a guy who's got a ton of connections in the DMV area. But Villanova finally has a date for Old Dominion. Kyle, moving on, how about this? I think this is going to be the second game of the season for LaSalle. They're going to host Monmouth in the start of a home-and-home series. Explorers are going to get Monmouth for their homecoming game on Saturday, November the 8th. Right after their home opener on Wednesday, November 5th against Coppin State. So it seems as though we have the first two games, home games, for Darius Nichols and the Explorers. And LaSalle Kyle will return that favor from Monmouth by playing at the Ocean First Bank Center. Excuse me, let me get that correct. During the 2026-2027 season. That's all for scheduling, Kyle. Let's move on to one administrative note here. How about a conference rebrand? Not the first one we've had. A couple years ago, we had the Colonial Athletic Association rebrand into the Coastal. Not quite like this. The American Conference now, Kyle. Notice I didn't say the American Athletic Conference. They have dropped athletic from its name and will go by the American or American Conference. They've also rebranded with the conference brand ambassador. And that's going to be Soar the Eagle, Kyle, a live and animated character who is the first of its kind. First of its kind for a college sports conference. So new slogan will be Built to Rise. I do like that. I like Tim Pernetti. Like he seems to have his wits about him, and being a former football player, like he clearly sees a lot of potential in this conference. The whole American Conference, probably for the best anyway. I think American Athletic Conference just got to be a mouthful. Better to just cut it. Most people call it the American anyway. I don't even know who's going to call it the American Conference. I'd rather just call it the American. I think that sounds a lot better. But Kyle, Soar the Eagle. He's created. The American hired a search firm. They drop athletic from its name. They come up with Soar. I don't know if that was worthy of dumping a lot of money, but regardless, we have a rebrand. And here's the thing, ready? I have an idea. if we want to go all in on Soar, we want to go all in on this logo, on this eagle, take the big block A logo out of center court for the conference tournament and put a giant Soar in the middle of the court.
Listen, maybe they will.
If you want to go all in, make sure Soar is everywhere. So when you're watching those tournament games, you can't miss them.
Maybe they will, especially now that it's not at Dickies Arena anymore. We're going to be in actual, maybe attractive stadiums.
We're going to Birmingham. I don't know how nice it's going to be.
Baby steps. Baby steps, Cope. We're getting out of Fort Worth. We're going to Birmingham. At least it's in a city where a team in the conference currently is. So that's a step forward. The seats won't be gray. That's a good thing. And now maybe they'll replace the big A with Soar the Eagle. Jokes aside, I think I agree with you. Like dropping athletic from the name is a good thing. I don't think people called it the American Athletic Conference. They just called it the American, like you said. I also agree. I don't think the American Conference will be used quite that often, but I think overall a success. But it's definitely interesting. They are the first conference, I'm pretty sure, to have a mascot, if you will. So we'll see.
And Kyle, we were talking about this on the phone earlier today, but like the American is just not really like recognizable. I think it doesn't carry the same weight as obviously the power conferences go, but like the SEC and the ACC and the Big 12, like they don't need mascots. They have all the big brands. The Mountain West, the Atlantic 10, like they don't need mascots. Like they have name recognition. And the problem with this conference is all the good teams leave. They had Louisville early on, then they didn't have Louisville. Houston, UCF leave.
UConn,
Cincinnati, Connecticut leaves after a short stint. It's like they just haven't been able to keep people. SMU left. Like I think that at the very least for them, if they have Soar and you have the Eagle, that can be a constant as like that's the logo that I guess you can remember this conference by. Because quite frankly, in most conferences in college, Kyle, especially this one with all the movement they had, year to year, the casual fan is going to be shocked to see North Texas or somebody in this conference.
You know what? Maybe Soar the Eagle will bring that recognition. Like
that's the thing. Soar is your constant, unless they decide to drop him, or maybe he leaves. Maybe he soars to another conference and he leaves. But that can be your constant. That can be like your logo, emblem, whatever, because the teams are coming and going here.
Listen, you never know. NIL's a little crazy these days. You never know what conference is going to throw a bag at Soar the Eagle and say, fly over here.
The SEC would offer Soar money he never thought was possible.
Yeah.
He could be gone in a minute.
We'll have to have Soar on at some point and ask him what his dream NIL deal would be like we've done with some of the players we've had on. That's what we're going to find out at some point. But for now, ladies and gentlemen, we have a different interview, a much more important one, I would say, for sure. And that would be St. Joe's associate head coach, Steve Donahue. Was a great conversation with Coach. And Cope, why not let these people wait any further? We're going to bring it to you right now. Here is St. Joe's associate head coach, Steve Donahue. All right, ladies and gentlemen, as promised, we have St. Joe's associate head coach, Steve Donahue, joining us right now. Coach, it's a pleasure having you on. How are you?
I'm great, Kyle, Jake. Thanks for having me on. I look forward to talking to you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. We are looking forward to talking to you right now. So why don't we get right into it? Cope, I know you wanted to ask the first question this time, so why don't you go right ahead?
Yeah, Coach, we'll just take turns firing back at you here, but let's talk about the reason why you're here with you. You just took a new position at St. Joe's, and when you read the press release when you first got announced, countless family members, your son went to St. Joe's, people in your family that have worked there. Like, you're clearly very familiar with this place, and it's not foreign to you at all. So if you could just speak on how comfortable you are already, and you called this place home in your press release. Why is that?
It's a family thing, as you touched on, for sure. 5 siblings, uncles, nephews. My sister Kathy worked as a vice president there for about 40 years. That's always been a part of our family, St. Joe's, and rooting for them. I had a teammate back in 1980, Billy Mitchell, a good friend of mine, a backcourt mate, went to St. Joe's. And as much as that's part of my life, it's never been part of my basketball experience in going in this business. But it's always been part of my family. I've always rooted for it. And then on top of that, you put someone like Billy Lang, who I've known him since the 90s when I recruited one of his players from Bishop Eustace, Jeff Owens. Billy's always been a really good friend and someone that we talked the game a ton. So it just made a lot of sense for me to jump in for sure.
And speaking on your relationship with Billy, because also in that press release, he had said that in the last 30 years, there's not anybody that he's used more as a resource than you. So, touching more on that relationship, how long it goes back. And then when you guys have all these conversations together and you hear how he's doing, his problems, what works for him, like what makes this a good pairing for you and your coaching experience to come in there and help him?
Well, first, I give Billy a ton of credit. Some coaches would be a little hesitant to bring in someone who's been a head coach for 25 years in this business. Billy and I have known each other forever. And he's someone I admire and trusted. We have conversations every year from when he was at the Merchant Marine Academy to assistant. We were both assistants under Herb McGee. We shared that experience. His Villanova to NBA, we shared and talked a lot about that. I've learned so much from him. And as I said, I think I'm really appreciative of him being comfortable with someone like myself coming in and allowing me to have an impact, because that's what I feel like I can. And that takes a very strong coach. And at the same time, as someone, I can't wait to learn more about what they do and how they do it. And from the last 2 years in particular, the success they had, if I can help in any way take that to another level, that's what I plan to do.
So speaking of which, obviously you mentioned your 25 years of head coaching experience. Now you're on the bench next to a head coach and Coach Lang. How can you help him, like in more of a specific sense, how can you help him from an X's and O's and game management standpoint, having all that experience?
Well, I think in this era of new players coming in, so we just had 8 weeks in the summer. It was awesome because I never had that experience in the Ivy. You didn't have access to your players. So we have 8 weeks, 7 new guys, and now we're both looking at what is the best in terms of how we want to play on both sides of the ball. And I think he leaned on me over these 8 weeks to implement some real conceptual things on how we're going to play on that in the offense. At the same time, I think his stuff that he's already done there is defensive things that he wants to do with this group, because I do think we're different than his last 2 years in particular. We're longer, we're more athletic, we're deeper, we have different skill sets. So I think you can do a little bit of both. And I think we had a great 8 weeks. I thought we married both of them together pretty well.
So, and not just from a style of play standpoint too, but obviously you're integrating yourself with Coach Lang and the rest of the staff, but you're also integrating yourself with the players as well. And those 8 weeks are something you maybe didn't have in the Ivy League. So how have you taken that so far, both on the court and off the court, since you've gotten the job? How have you taken that to build new relationships with these players that have come in and that have been there too?
As I said, when I was in the Ivy for all those years, I kind of poo-hooed the summer. It's not that big a deal. It's only 8 weeks. It's 4 hours of basketball. But to your point, it's so much more than that. Now, we can be in a relaxed state and really be teachers. And then we can really spend time off the court and get to know these guys without the pressure of a game in another week and all the things that go with that. And I've enjoyed getting to know the returners. I've enjoyed getting to know the new guys and the journeys that they're on. And honestly, I've noticed a difference in the commitment to basketball. To me, really jumped out at me. From the players, the university, Jill as an AD and Rob Sullivan as your general manager. All those things are very apparent with our beautiful new practice facility, and just a different vibe, almost from my BC days. And it's even gotten, to me, St. Joe's is even more committed in all those ways. And I probably didn't expect it to be that different, but it is.
So, Coach, I want to touch on your Ivy League experience here and some of the differences that you just touched on, and specifically the NIL space here, because you're coming to a school that opted into the house settlement. Jill Bodensteiner and Billy Lang had a nice 40-minute, YouTube clip of them going back and forth and going over this. But you're coming from a league that nobody opted in. Now, that's not really to the surprise of anybody, I guess. The Ivy, obviously with the Ivy League not doing scholarships and all that stuff, it makes sense why they wouldn't. But you're coming into a situation where NIL is doing very well there. The St. Joe's community is doing a very good job of promoting that to their players. So just in terms of NIL in general, what have you had to learn on the fly since you have gotten there that maybe you just weren't exposed to at Penn?
Yeah, I think you touch on real good thing about the Ivies, and it's obviously it was very harmful to what we had going on. The NIL came in, and the only guy who left the NIL 3 years ago was the Player of the Year, Jordan Dingle. But it crushed us to have the reigning Ivy League Player of the Year and not come back. I think the leagues have taken a hit. The Ivies have gone to be ranked typically right with the A10. I saw the last rankings are A10's up to 8th and the Ivies at 16th. What I appreciate, and I don't know exactly how they're exactly doing it at St. Joe's. I want to make that clear. But what I do feel is that there's an understanding that if St. Joe's is going to participate and be someone that can contribute, make long runs in the NCAA tournament, NIL has to be part of it. And they believe in that. It's designed like that. The players understand it. And I guess I'm more of an observer of what that takes and the commitment level that St. Joe's has. And even the players taking an understanding of their responsibilities are even more, because there's more scrutiny. Let's be honest, when you're getting paid, there's more dedication needed to represent St. Joe's in every right way. And I think Coach Lang and Jill and Rob all understand that as well. I've just been impressed with, I just feel they understand where this is all going. Maybe no one knows exactly, but they're not intimidated by it. They're taking the proper steps to keep St. Joe's basketball in that upper echelon and compete for A10 championships, and if that's hopefully deep runs into the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
So touching on that point, Coach, with you have Jill that is very aggressively pursuing this. You have a basketball general manager in Rob Sullivan that St. Joe's is pretty early on, and a lot of teams are now following. So it's become pretty standard for a lot of programs to have that. But when you see the commitment from Rob Sullivan, from Jill, and from Billy Lang, all in this together in this new NIL space, what about that connection, makes you know that, hey, we're going to have success in this era. No matter what happens, it's always rapidly changing. You have to be very flexible. But when you see all them work together, what makes you think, hey, this is a good spot where there's an upward trajectory. They're going to succeed in this new era?
Jake, anytime I've had success coaching in college, there's a synergy between your athletic director, your head coach, administration. And when that's not there, there's issues. And I think what Jill is there, she knows all the players. She's understanding of what is around the program. And Rob is really connected and understanding of what we need daily and obviously as a program ahead. I think the key thing for me that I probably really didn't understand is Billy's very comfortable with all this. Maybe his NBA background, understanding that free agents come, rookies come in. How do we build this roster? Not only that, how do you talk to these kids and understand that they have really personal aspirations, yet understanding that the team is the main thing. And Billy is excellent. I don't think I could have came in there with that clarity of the situation and had those kind of things to speak to the guys, to understand what it's going to take and be comfortable with all this. To me, I just feel that St. Joe's and Billy in particular, and Jill and Rob understand that their three are going to have to work together as we understand where this college basketball is going. But they're ready, and I think they're being more active than reactive with everything.
And it certainly seems that way so far. But I want to follow up real quick on one point you just mentioned before we move on to kind of your current team this year. You mentioned like how the conversation is a little bit different between, coaching staff and players now in this era where players are getting paid and whatnot. Is that something, and you might have touched on it earlier, but is that something that's like jarring to you as someone who was a coach in an era where that was not going on and now it's a different vibe around the teams with people getting paid? Is that different for you?
It's really not. It's probably more different to me, Kyle, when I talk to others outside of coaching. When I'm in the gym and I'm talking to young men, like I've always had, that are 19 to 22, 23 years old, I've always wanted them to think of their dreams and what could this look like, and understand that we're going to have our core values here and we're going to go through them, and you're going to develop you in a holistic approach. And basketball is another vehicle to do that. But at the end of the day, they're going to graduate and they're going to be great husbands, and hopefully we're invited to their weddings, and I'm a part of their life like I was for the 50 or so kids I coached at Penn over those 10 years. I think that hasn't changed. I think when you go up into the office and you start looking at the board and you're putting the numbers together, that's slightly different. But honestly, I just love being on the court with these guys, and I sense no different in their mindset. Now, I'm not heavily involved in agent talks and what he's looking at and those things, and I don't know if I would have been if I hadn't gone through the experience. So I think they've all, meaning Billy and the coaches, have exposed me to all that. But on the court, it feels the same to me as it always has.
Love that. All right. So this year's roster now. First guy I want to ask you about is Justice Ajibor, who, if you count his game as at Harvard, you've played against him 6 times in your coaching career. Defensive monster, guy who gets a lot of boards. How nice is it for him to be on your side now?
First of all, he's a delightful kid, and we recruited him a little bit out of high school as well. It's been great. He's so much of exactly what I thought he would be. He's an incredible kid. The defensive stuff is amazing. What we're trying to do is just give him more to do on the offensive end. And I think we're going to blend him in certain ways that we can help really project more offensive numbers when he's on the court, because the defensive numbers have been off the charts. He's literally one of the best shot blockers in the country in any league. So I do think with what we're trying to get him to do on the offensive end and building up his skills and reads, that he's going to be more impactful than he has been on the offensive end. And hopefully he's that same defensive menace, because I do think you can do so many things on defense because of his rim protection. And St. Joe's did that. They were an excellent defensive team.
So touching on another center, Coach, I want to talk about 2 guys that you have some familiarity with because you did see them last year when they came to the Palestra, and they had good games in that contest. That's Steven Solano and Derek Simpson. So the 2 of them both going into their second years, but Simpson, a true senior. You have Steven Solano, limited game action, stepped away from the team last year. But both these guys, even in different age classes here, going into their second year with the program, how can they continue to integrate themselves in the team in year 2?
Yeah, I think you're hitting on 2 guys that I think can really take a big jump. And Steve, it's just health. If he's healthy, he's worked incredible on his body. He really looks great. That's the first and foremost. And he's big and he's confident. If he's healthy, he's going to be impactful. I love his skill set. He can do some of the things that we've started to do with dribble handoffs and the reads and his physicality down low. I think he has a chance, really. Derek Simpson's someone that I just know he's going to have a breakout season. I think he's been someone that has tried to fit in, whether it was his 2 years at Rutgers. He comes to St. Joe's last year. They had the leading scorer in the history of the program. They have someone like Xavier Brown's first team all league. I think he's trying to fit in. This year, I think it's his team in a lot of ways. I've been amazed at his athleticism, his quickness. His shooting, to me, is what will separate him to take that next step. And he's done an amazing job over these 2 months. He's really shot it well. We're trying to understand what's a good shot for him, what's not. But Derek is such a great team guy. I love his energy. We're trying to talk about cutting and the things we do. He's an amazing cutter. He's a willing cutter. He's a great finisher. I think you're going to see him in a different light this year, because I do think he's going to be able to shoot the ball from three, and teams are going to have to guard him differently. And if that's the case, I think you're going to see a whole different Derek Simpson.
So one other guy I want to touch on was somebody who Derek Simpson switched his role for midseason. He made the move to the bench. Anthony Finkley moved into the starting lineup. And it's crazy to think that Anthony Finkley now finds himself as the longest tenured player on this team with all the movement that's happened. But he comes in there. He can handle it a little bit, just as he did in high school at Roman. But he was one of the best shooters, like, in the conference percentage wise. He was another floor spacer to give this team. And then towards the end of the year, his defense shone as well. So him being now the elder statesman here, has some starting experience under his belt. How can he take the next step to becoming an impactful player as he already is?
Yeah, Jake, I think for sure Anthony's someone that, if we're going to be really good, it's because he took another big step. I'm a huge Anthony Finkley fan. I've always have been. I loved him in high school. I saw that. I just love guys who have a great feel for the game, IQ, skill, and he's worked really hard on his body. And now he's moving better than he ever has. He's someone that I think you saw it last year, and you'll see it more this year, that you can do so many things and play through him. He can be the ball screen. He can handle a screen. He can set the screen. He's a spot up. He just makes really good decisions all the time. I think the St. Joe's will see a guy that's moving better. He's finishing better. And you're still going to see the shooting, the passing, and I think the cutting. And he is a good defender. He's very positional. He's got a great, even after St. Joe's, if we wake up one day in 4 or 5 years, he's on an NBA roster, I will not be surprised, because he really has understanding of what it takes to play at the highest level.
So, Coach, speaking of Anthony Finkley, I think going into last year, if you asked me who was going to be the X factor for last year's St. Joe's team, I would have said Anthony Finkley, someone who originally was coming off the bench, contributed a lot, obviously ended up, taking over a starter role to the end of the season. I think if you had to ask me going into this year who that person will be, I think it's going to be Desir Haskins, who also similarly is who's going into his second year full-time, playing a redshirted his freshman year. How good has he been so far from what you've seen this offseason? And, how can he make that second year leap that Anthony Finkley seemed to have? He's been,
in my opinion, the most consistent guy over these 2 months. First of all, he doesn't miss a practice. He is locked in, incredible sponge for information as a coach. I can feel that he wants to learn and get better. He's been our best cutter. I know that sounds, to me, when someone's your best cutter, that tells me that they understand the game. They know when to cut, where to cut. He's a very good defender. He can defend 1 through 4, if not 5. His shooting has been good. And I'm with you. I do think all 4 of those guys who played last year, big roles, even without the new guys, have to continue to grow. And that's obviously Desir, and it's Anthony, and it's Justice, and it's Derek. Those 4 have to take that leadership role. I think we built great depth with the new guys, but all 4 of those guys, I feel, are going to be an integral part of us taking another step.
Absolutely. And there's another guy who was there last year, but didn't play so much, dealt with some injuries, and that's Kafik Myers, obviously Philly guy, state champion, Catholic League champion. Injuries, like I said, caused him to sit out most of the year last year. How has he looked this summer, and Is he another person who you think can make a big leap returning to Hawk Hill?
Yeah, there's another kid I saw a ton in high school and loved his toughness. He looks really good right now. He's completely healthy. He's way quicker than he looks. He finishes better than you think. He guards 94 feet. He makes others better. He's shot the ball well. I think the thing with Kafik is he's going to have to pick his spots in our league to make others better when he's making those decisions going downhill, because he can go by people and then just be understanding. But I think gets the rust off early. I think you're going to see a very good A-10 player for sure.
I want to touch on your transfers now. And you guys, I think, are pretty fortunate to be bringing in 4, as some teams have to fill 12 or 13. We interviewed Darius Nichols from LaSalle. He had to have a brand new roster. But speaking of LaSalle, Deuce Jones is coming to Hawk Hill. Played 4 times against this team last year, 3 of which were very good. He had one off night, but the talent, the scoring, the tenacity of this guy as a freshman were off the charts. And then you couple that in with the guy like Jaden Glover Toscano, who St. Joe's was after hard before he committed to St. John's. You now bring these guys in as sophomores. Although they're young and still in the early parts of their career, like this has the potential to be a very exciting scoring duo here in this league, and one of the best in this league if they can mesh together and continue to grow. As you bring these guys in, what is their talent level like? And in particular, these 2 guys, how do you think they can fit together and be on the court at the same time?
Well, as I said earlier, I thought Rob and Billy, because they were all already done with those guys when I got here. One, they recruited great kids. Like they're really into what we're doing, which was refreshing to me, especially with transfers. In particular, those 2, talent-wise, Jaden he just moves differently than most. He's really fluid, long, athletic, understands how to get to spots, goes by people, can shoot it. What he's going to need is he's going to need game reps. He's going to have to feel what it is in a game. But you're going to see it pretty much right away that he's really talented. And I love his IQ. I love his willingness to learn. And he's had a really good summer. Deuce is someone you saw, and you see that energy. I love his competitiveness. He probably rose the level of this whole program with his competitiveness. And I can feel that with the group. He's a great defender. He goes 94 feet and competes. I think for him, we're trying to add different things to make him even better, to take that next step, be a consistent catch and shoot guy. So these guys all want to play. Even in college, you got to be that. But if you want to play after college, being a floor spacer is important. That's something Deuce could add to his game because he can really shoot it. He just hasn't really had that role much in his high school career and his year at LaSalle. But both of those 2, I agree. They both can really guard. They're both athletic. They can really change the game on both sides of the ball. And I think you'll see that pretty quickly in both of them.
So moving on to your transfer bigs now, you spoke about the depth of this team. You bring in Al Amadou, a local guy that St. Joe's is also after in his high school recruitment before choosing Marquette, and Jaden Smith, another guy who they were in on before he decided to go to Fordham. So you bring 2 guys with some familiarity with the program here. Jaden Smith is a big body. Al Amadou, long, athletic, as you spoke to. As far as the depth of this team goes, how important will these 2 guys be as you bring them in from the portal?
I also think you touched on another good point that they knew these guys. They recruited them. There's an understanding of what it's going to be like when they got here. Both have been very impressive. And I give Al's been with a great program like Marquette and for 2 seasons. He really has an understanding of what it takes every day. I liked him in high school. He's improved so much. He's stronger, understands how to play, he's skilled. He's got a chance to be very impactful. He could be almost like our 5. He could be your 4. He can guard anybody. He's got some versatility. And as you said, he really provides some really depth here. We got great length and athleticism throughout the 1 through, 14. Jaden Smith is more of your traditional 5. However, really, he grew up as a guard, spurted up as a sophomore, 7-8 inches, all of 6'10", 7-foot wingspan, and really understands how to play for a big kid. So you can have him away from the basket. He can be doing dribble handoffs. He can be setting ball screens, short pocket rolls, and making passes. And he's got himself in really good shape over these 2 months. He's coming off an injury. He's never really played much last year. It's probably going to take a little bit of time. But once again, I do think it's a guy that will jump off the page at you like, that's a very talented, big player.
And we're certainly excited to see both of those transfers and the other 2 as well that Coach mentioned too. One more question for this roster, Coach, and then we'll move on to some Big 5 related stuff. But the couple people that college basketball fans, Big 5 fans haven't seen because they are freshmen are Austin Williford and Owen Verna coming in this year. What could they potentially bring to Hawk Hill in year 1?
Ironically, I've recruited both of them pretty heavily. They both visited Penn, and they're both different in this sense, but I think Austin is your kind of, if you put a St. Joe's guard in your mind, he can guard anybody. He's got great feet. He's a very good athlete. He's got a good feel for the game. Shooting hasn't been his strength, but it's something I feel it will come. He can really play 94 feet. It's just hard to play as a freshman in college basketball right now and be impactful. I do think he will have a role because I think he's really shown that he can play at this level. Owen Vernon, as I said, recruited him. His father's actually a Delco guy, went to Upper Darby. Frank, his father, played football there, and Owen's tough. Played at Modern Day out in L.A., can really shoot it. He's a floor spacer. He's got some toughness, understands what it is to play at the highest level. He did that in high school and AAU. He's coming off 2 hip injuries, and I don't even know if I'm allowed to say that. So I don't know if he'll be 100% by the time we practice, but certainly thereafter. And I think we all should be excited to have him because he is different than everyone else. He really shoots it. He can get him off, and he's very competitive.
All right. Now on to some Big 5 stuff because, of course, Coach, we are the Big 5 podcast. Obviously, you've had a number of years of experience in the Big 5, playing the Big 5, all the above. So what was your Big 5 upbringing like, following these teams and going to games when you were younger?
Yeah, I fell in love with it. Like bitty basketball team, 6th grade, trip, yellow bus, pull up in front of the Palestra, see a doubleheader on a Friday night. I was done then. I was like, this is the spectacle of the arches at the Palestra and everything that back then you could have noisemakers. So St. Joe's would have the drum and Temple would have the cowbells, and it was just electric. And at some point I knew I couldn't play at this level, but I was enamored with the coaches. And back then, Chuck Daly and Rolly Massimino's and Don Casey's and Harry Litwack and all those guys just were amazing. So I grew up a fan of all this. And this is, and I said this when I was in Boston, there's no better college basketball city than Philadelphia. There's college towns and all that, but no major city has the passion for college basketball that this city does. And it's still apparent. And I know we've been on, unfortunately, a run of not getting to the NCAA tournament. I would actually look at it. It's amazing the streak we had for all those years that we sent 1 and 2 and 3 teams to the NCAA tournament. I think all of us over this last 3 or 4 years in particular, it's a new world with the NIL and unfortunately bigger conferences and football schools. Because I'm telling you, I watched a lot of basketball with teams and friends of mine in the SEC, and I watched St. Joe's. St. Joe's is better than half those schools, and they got 14 teams in that. A team that got with 6 and 12 got in there. St. Joe's basketball, it was as good as those teams last year. Somehow we got to figure out these numbers and reward teams like St. Joe's and like others in the Atlantic 10.
So, Coach, touching on that point that you bring up with, no better basketball city than Philadelphia and the tradition here, and even the new format and the missed tournament appearances, like the interest in the Big Five is not what it was in your heyday where you're describing and walking in there with noisemakers and everything. And with NIL and the transfer portal and people coming and going, maybe people that aren't from here that don't understand this, like there's a lot of factors that I think contribute to that and the interest not being what it was. But even with that, where someone like yourself grew up in this, coached in this, how important of a tradition is this in your eyes and to your peers that regardless of local guys or not, who's here, who's not, this is a tradition that needs to be celebrated every year and should be kept going on?
I agree with you, Jake. I think we got to really be smart and creative in everything we do. Like everybody in this entertainment business, like to take off a late night talk show that was a staple for so many people growing up. It's changing. There's a lot of competition for the entertainment dollar. That being said, the Big Five is a unique piece of the fabric of Philadelphia. And I think this change was needed. I think it's been excellent. The culmination of the triple header at the Wells Fargo Center has been unbelievable. More people have talked about the Big Five to me the last 2 years than they did the previous 10 years combined. People know the date. They know what it looks like. What I love to see happen is that we all figure out this NIL world and our programs grow and we retain players and you can feel like you know these guys. And I think St. Joseph's done a pretty good job of keeping their better players for the most part. I think all of us need to try to do that. That will help it because there is a familiarity that people want. They want to know who's coming back. They know that kid. They saw him as a freshman. They see his growth as a junior. They see what it could do. And I hope we can do that for the city. But I love what the Big Five is. I love where it's going. And I just think we got to keep thinking maybe out of the box and keep it going so it is, preserved.
Absolutely. And Coach, I think one of those things is keeping together the biggest rivalries in the Big Five. There's a lot of them, but I think the biggest one is the one that your school is involved in the Holy War, which is not scheduled currently to happen this year. It would be the second time since 1954. Does that bum you out that, especially your first year on the St. Joe's staff, that the Holy War is not going to happen unless it's the Big Five championship?
Well, we talked about this a lot when I was in meetings when I first got back to Penn, and that being the thought of it. I think they're 2-year cycles. It may only be 2 years. However, what an incredible atmosphere we could have where the Holy War is at the Wells Fargo, and there's 2 really good teams. Like I'm getting chills. Like Villanova, St. Joe's, where a banner's going to be hung. Like that's when you want everything. I think that's the thing that we thought about. Like that could be really special. Yes, it's unfortunate that we're not playing this, but there's a chance that we roll the dice, and this could be one of the most memorable games in Big Five history. So I give them credit. We can look at this, I'm sure, every couple of years and think what it is. But for the most part, I think we're hoping that could happen. And what would that look like? And how will that feel if 2 really good teams meet with that championship on the line?
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, definitely have to get creative to keep interest in the Big Five.
Yeah.
I think that's definitely one of the ways to do that. So, I'm not going to say I'm rooting for any teams in the Big Five, but that would be a very special matchup for sure. We try to be unbiased, of course, but Fran Dunphy at the Big Five Classic presser a few years ago said that we need to honor the Palestra. Obviously, you coached there for many, many years. You're heading back there this year to play Penn. Do you think a Palestra doubleheader can still happen even in the new format with the triple header at the Wells Fargo?
Can it happen? It can. Like there's some things that we talked about with Drexel and uh, being that I think that would be special. Um, I think we got to be careful to oversell that to another generation. Like it's like all the things we're doing, we're trying to our guys were so excited to play in an NBA arena where the Sixers play. Like that was a lot to them. So I think for younger people, that's a huge piece. I do think if we do it right and do a doubleheader at the Palestra, I absolutely think it could be a success. And to your point, maybe that brings in another crew that says this is really special. Listen, we sold out Villanova last year before last and beat them, and there was a court rush. Like I was so happy that our student body experienced that they saw what this Big Five was like to beat a ranked Villanova team and have a court storming and I saw that in my guys' faces. Like that's really special. So I would hope that building that's going to be 100 years old next year, it'd be pretty cool to have a doubleheader in that way.
Coach, I want to go across University City from the Palestra and talk about your old associate Zach Spiker here. He's going into year number 10 at Drexel, if you can believe that. Put up his two highest win totals in this season and the season prior. And from you working with him at Cornell and knowing him over the years, number one, how has it been for you to see his coaching career grow right from where, a city that you're from and you worked in? But then in terms of the Big Five, Drexel's embraced it. They have the Big Five flags on Market Street in front of the DAC. They got the Big Five logo on all their clothes. Like clearly this is something that they have embraced. How have you seen him embrace the Big Five culture since he's been in Philly?
I mean, that was the biggest step, I think, for all of us. And I give a lot of the older people to be open-minded that Drexel belongs. That's a Division I program that's been very successful at times. They deserve to be included. And I love how they've embraced it. And believe me, Zach has. And it's amazing what he's done in recruiting. I think they have 6 kids over the last 3 years go high major, including a draft choice for the Boston Celtics in Amir Williams this year. What he's built there has been incredible. And it's been hard because he's been losing players. And he keeps finding ways to build up and get better each and every year. I do love that they're in the Big Five. I do think that's a team that could really benefit for a championship, to see that program eventually win a Big Five championship. There's a lot of Drexel alum that felt slighted over these years. And I think even 2 years, then beating Villanova at the Wells Fargo Center was a big moment for that school. It really was. And I'm thrilled that they're in it. And I think it's well deserved.
Yeah, absolutely. And they played all close games. And if you look at their, like, the 2 times the DAC has hosted a Big Five game, the atmosphere has been great. And the last 2 years for the Big Five Classic, there's been a ton of Drexel, not only students, but alumni at the games as well. So right there with you, they've embraced it. And clearly, like, they are very excited about it. I think they're a terrific add to the Big Five here. But Coach, I want to ask you about not even so much, this isn't really even so much a question here, but your old mentor, Fran Dunphy, finally rode off into the sun, retired, a Big Five legend, the only guy to do it at 3 schools. When you think about your journey with him, you coached with them at Penn, then you coached against them while you were at Cornell, and the battles that you've had over the years with him, your friendship with them, the stuff you guys do for Coaches versus Cancer, his impact on the Big Five. Like, is it possible to encapsulate all that he's meant to Philadelphia and basketball in the city?
No, it's very difficult. I'm just so fortunate that he gave me a chance at age 28 to be an assistant. And listen, I had no thing coming out of college. I was a very average D3 player, did 4 years of high school basketball assistant, did my 2 years with Herb. And one, his openness to accept me. Two, his egoless behavior to allow me to grow as a coach is incredible. And I talk to a lot of young players, a lot of young coaches, and say, hey, how'd you do it? Like, I got lucky. I was around a guy like Fran Dunphy, and Fran O'Hanlon is another one, and I worked with him for 10 years. What you see is exactly what he does for everybody. His impact, as you mentioned, Coaches versus Cancer, but it's everything. Fran is that type of person, and he's the same guy right now that he was 25 years ago. And he's not riding any sunset that I see. He's at high school games. He's helping LaSalle and Temple, and I'm sure Penn, and it's just the type of person he is. And I got very lucky because to navigate this business is very difficult, and to have someone like him be a mentor and so much more has been really great. I'm really grateful for it.
So I got to ask you about a specific game here, and it's one that you unfortunately sent Fran Dunphy home with an L with, and that is you beat him in the NCAA tournament en route to a Sweet 16. And if I'm correct here, when you left Penn as an assistant under Dunphy and went to Cornell, you never beat him while he was at Penn. 0 for 12. And I don't mean to date you on that, but you never beat him. You never beat your mentor while you're at Cornell, and then you don't see him for a couple years on the other side of the sideline. You do in the NCAA tournament, and you upset him en route to an all-time Cornell season. What do you remember from that game coaching against Fran Dunphy?
It was kind of a surreal moment, honestly. They had a great Temple team. Like, they got underseeded. That should have been a 1-2 seed. They were a 4. Right? Am I correct there?
You at 5-12,
yeah. 5. I'm sorry. And just like the irony of playing him, and I've been on the sideline with him for, I think, 5 or 6 NCAA tournaments, and this was his best team. So honestly, my wife laughs at me because I saw him afterwards, and he was typical Fran, incredibly grateful and congratulatory, and really said so many nice things, and I was almost in tears because I know what it meant to him. And this was a great group that he had. They could have made a deep run. And I felt awful at that time. I did. And as you said, not only did he beat me 12 straight times, I don't think we were really close. Like, he took it to us. And so that moment was crazy. It's not something we ever talk about. And we had a terrific Cornell team and went on to beat Wisconsin, and then lost to Kentucky and John Wall and Cousins and Bledsoe and group. But that was a real strange moment in Jacksonville. But like you would expect, Dumph was incredibly classy through it all.
As he has been throughout his entire coaching and life history, I'm sure. And we haven't got the chance to interview him yet on here, but hopefully that'll be one soon for sure. All right, Coach. A little rapid fire here to end, some Big Five questions to end the interview. So obviously one of the things that the Big Five is known most about is their rollouts of the schools and the student sections. What is the best or even craziest rollout that you've ever seen that you can remember?
I can't even say the ones, dude, because they come right to my mind, and like crazy ones. There's a reason that they get read now before they get rolled out. Honestly, I got three or four. Like, I can't say those things. I love the experience. I think they did it the last couple of years. It was cool. But growing up, like, you couldn't wait to see what they said. Unfortunately, now with social media and all that, like, they get washed away. I'd be afraid to give you one, honestly.
And
I think
it's
you said all you
probably
need to say.
for the best that they go through a TSA pre-check
Yes.
before they get rolled out there. So, Coach, next one for you. You lived the coach's life for a while. Very demanding on your time. Not often you get free time. Are you down the shore? You look like you got a shore background. What is the ideal summer getaway for Steve Donahue?
Yeah, I'm lucky. We've used Avalon, New Jersey, forever with my family. So even when I was at Cornell and BC, I always came down here, and we're down here again. So I'm lucky, and there's a lot of college basketball guys down here, a lot of coaches, Dumph and Phil Martelli, and so this is a spot we go to. And for those years I was away, 16, 17 years, it was a great chance to catch up with everybody. But
Yeah.
big fan of the Jersey Shore.
Right. I was just there Saturday. I was just down Avalon Saturday, man. Great
Nice.
spot.
I have not been down yet this year, but we still got about 6 weeks or so. We'll see what happens. All right. Obviously, you've coached against a lot of talented players in the Big Five. Can you give us 3 players who just kept you up at night game planning for?
In the Big Five, it's funny. I think because I'm going recent, because that's the way I'm thinking, not when I was an assistant. I love some of the older Villanova teams like Alvin Williams and that crew were excellent. Curry Kittles, really good. Temple, Eddie Jones. I remember, I'll give you that one. That group of Eddie Jones and Aaron McKee and Pepe Sanchez was amazing. Pepe Sanchez maybe been, like, he was player of the year, and I think he averaged 8 points a game. You think about that. He's a Big Five player of the year. We had a rule when you played Pepe, so they played the zone. So if you went to his side, you got one dribble. If you took another dribble, you got to pick it up. You don't give Pepe another shot at stealing it. He was amazing. And the more recent, I thought Eric Dixon was so terrific with his career and how he went from what he started at to what he ended. I thought he was great. I think those are the ones that come to mind now.
Yeah, that's a cream of the crop right there. I mean, that's an all-time Temple team, and with Dixon being the leading scorer of the country and him being maybe the last iteration of the Villanova way and the growth of a guy that you spoke of, like that's certainly an all-time player there.
Now, I played against, I'm sorry to interrupt, both the Villanova champions. Both Brunson was an amazing college player. All those kids were ridiculously locked in. And I think all of us wonder, how can you do that nowadays? And first of all, they hit on all those kids. And Brunson was probably the only one that wasn't a 3-star recruit. And then to keep them there. And then to win 2 national championships, just amazing. Yeah.
Incredible. And unfortunately, like with where we are now, I think it makes you appreciate it more that that might be the last time we could see something like that. So, Coach, I want to take you off the court here because I had a little birdie tell me a story about you, and that is your early days at Penn as an assistant. You hear stories about people, Fred Dunphy, I think he was checking cards at American University to people in the library to make some extra money. I had a little birdie tell me that you used to be a paint salesman your early years at Penn and that you even sold the paint used to make the whale mural on the Schuylkill River. Is that true?
It's all true. I was 10 years old. MAB Paints. The Bruder was a Philadelphia-based company for like 100 years. Was bought out last 15 years by Sherwin-Williams. But yeah, I tell people I didn't make a dime coaching until I was 33 years old. So I was a volunteer at Penn and all those. So yeah, that mural that's down now, that was one of my bigger sales. I sold the paint for, it was an artist named Whalen, painted these beautiful whales within like a day with a spray paint. It was an amazing artist. But that's my claim to fame. And I don't know who the heck told you that, but yeah.
I'm not allowed to reveal my sources, coach, and I'm sure you're the same way. I'm not allowed to. But yeah, so how long did that keep you afloat for? If that was one of your bigger sales, you're not making anything. Were you like,
that's a good commission?
Yeah.
Yeah, like that was some expensive epoxy paint.
I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it. Listen, you got to do what you got to do. You know? All right. One final question, Coach, and we ask this to every guest that comes on here, and we're definitely very curious of your answer. Obviously, growing up in the area, coaching at Penn multiple times, now at St. Joe's, you've probably had your chance to try a fair share of cheesesteak spots. So, where does Steve Donahue get his cheesesteak from? I
don't even think it's competition, really, honestly. I think those other ones are good that everyone talks about. But D'Alessandro's is by far, for me, like that's an incredible. Like I like to chop up, package right, little American. We're good.
Okay, the popular one.
Yeah, very popular. We've gotten some of that. We've gotten some. I'm blanking right now. Cope, what else have we got? We haven't gotten Chats and Genos. I think, especially from the Philly natives, I think people stay away.
Yeah.
Touristy spot, but
Max is a big one. How about Larry's right next to Hagen Arena? Got a couple Larry's.
Yeah.
Gotten some of that, but yeah, it's a popular one. It's a staple for sure. Can't go wrong with it.
It is funny. It's hard to get good ones outside of the city.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't even get them in Ithaca. The rolls are different. Everything's different.
Listen, if someone is selling a cheesesteak and they title it a Philly cheesesteak, stay away. Stay far away. That's for everybody listening right now, watching. Stay away. If you want to get it, come here and get it.
That's good.
And that's all that. So, Coach, thank you so much for coming on and talking ball with us. We very much appreciate it. We're looking forward to this year's St. Joe's Hawks team. It's going to be another great year on Hawk Hill, so definitely looking forward to that. Cope, any final thoughts for Coach here?
Yeah, Coach, very, very much appreciate you being generous with all your time tonight. Hopefully we didn't keep you from seeing a nice sunset on your deck in Avalon, so we're going to go let you do that. But we very much appreciate your time. Great conversation.
I love that you're doing this, honestly. When these things help the Big Five. Like, I appreciate that you guys are dedicated to it and draw an audience, and I'm glad to be a part of it.
Absolutely. Trying our best, that's for sure. Coach, thank you so much again for coming on. We really appreciate it. Thank you guys for tuning in as always, and we will see you next time.